Come on, bitch, let's go. Come on, get ready, bitches. You haven't seen nothing yet. Come on.
Valentino, Versace, Lamborghini, Bugatti. I got money to burn. I'm single and I'm naughty.
Come on.
Tiffany's, Cartier, Gucci, Armani.
Come on.
Break out your black card, boys. It's time to party.
Hi, you guys. So happy Halloween week. And since we're doing a theme this week, I'm covering monsters. You can apply it as you see fit in this episode. Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, just to begin here, because I promised I would do it with a gossip dump. I do have some gossip to spill on this. And then I want to move on to Virginia Giuffre's new book that she dropped, which I read. And I want to tell you about the highlights in today's show and get into some of the receipts. So we're going to be doing that today. I am super excited to share all this with you, especially if you're like me. You've been following Epstein in depth since the beginning. We have an entire collection in the Dishing Drama Dana Patreon dedicated to Epstein. If you guys don't know what that is, when you download the Patreon app on your phone or you're listening to it on your radio or however you're getting it, there is a tab that you can click called Collections, and you'll see all these beautiful pictures come up from my collections. And they have different categories. I just made one yesterday for Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, and Justin Baldoni. It has all the stories that we've gotten about them, plus their case. I also have a true crime collection for the people who love that part of my content. I have a paranormal collection. I have a royal gossip collection. And then, of course, the reality shows and other things. I even have a rare celebrity biography collection where you're going to find the really hard to get stories about people that you should care about that probably went under the radar for you. So anyway, check out the collections if you haven't. It really will optimize what you're interested in like the 3,000 plus posts in the Patreon. Also, there's other features that people aren't aware of, which is if you only want audio content, you can actually make it so your Patreon pulls up only audio content I do versus only video content I do. Or you can just leave your feed alone and you get it all. So I want to make sure you guys are understanding all the different features of the Patreon so you're maximizing it. And you guys know, as of a few months ago, I started putting time codes in everything I did, not just the bonus audios. And so now you can kind of get to what you want to listen to. Okay. So we really get a feel in the beginning of season 6, episode 6, Out of Gas, that Heather Gay's semaglutide journey has gone really well for her because she looks really thin and great and healthy. And I'm so happy for her because she really didn't want to do it. And then she did. And now I'm so happy she looks so good. And she's got a nice glow up going. Anyway, Heather is talking to Angie Katsanevas. Angie is like, I am going to be the one that holds Lisa Barlow accountable for all the awful things she's dug up on all the people over the years, although it's certainly not just Lisa Barlow that does this. However, they've chosen to use this Achilles heel on Lisa Barlow. So Angie is speaking to Heather about that, and Heather says very carefully that, she does want Lisa to take accountability for doing this, but she doubts it's going to happen, but we'll see. Now, if you haven't figured it out, Heather Gay and the rest of the cast plan is to make the fans perceive that Lisa Barlow is another Monica Garcia. Now, what's ironic about this is Lisa Barlow joined forces with Heather Gay to get Monica Garcia off the show behind the scenes with the network by saying they thought she was crazy and stalking them and all these things, and that it was like an HR risk. So Monica gets booted off the show. But part of what that was anchored in was what we saw, which was reality Von Tease. So what Lisa didn't know is now Heather is in pole position with the rest of the women to set Lisa up as another reality Von Tease. And they tried to do it last season with Whitney Rose, but I sort of foiled their plan because I told the truth about what happened. And so now what's happening is they're trying it again, this time using Angie Katsanevas to head this effort up to get Lisa Barlow in trouble for digging up dirt on all the cast members so that hopefully the fans see her like a Monica Garcia, which they see as a bad thing. I know the fans don't. But this is really important, this strategy, because this is a long time pitted vendetta for Lisa. Now, to be fair, Lisa has earned this vendetta. She's not nice to the women. She does dig up shit on them, but they also dig up shit on her. But she started it, and she's not liked by many people in Salt Lake City, truly. So this is not unusual that this is all happening. And there really is no good guy in all this, is what I'm trying to tell you guys. Heather also announces that they're going to do a mashup with Below Deck. Captain Jason, through his relationship with Heather Gay and production, is going to be taking the women to, I guess, the Grenadine St. Vincent area. I've never been where they're going, so I don't know very much about it. But I do know that Angie Harrington and Heather Gay did make an appearance on a previous Below Deck, and they had a really fun time on that trip. So this is sort of the tie, I guess, to Heather Gay, being the one to coordinate this for all the ladies. They seem really happy to be going to an exotic place. It shows the budget's gone up on the show. So then we jump to this really horrific scene with Bronwyn and her husband, who obviously has some form of, I don't know what, but he struggles to listen to her mundane conversations about gossip or interactions with the women, even out of just a respect for her as his lover. He literally dismisses her all the time. She asks him to not eat her cherry on her sundae. Within 30 seconds, he eats the cherry off the sundae, as to almost say, like, a total disrespect. He's annoyed. I can tell he didn't want to film. I can tell they made him film. And his way of retaliating against both Bronwyn and production was his behavior in this scene, which is, I'm not interested. I could care less. I'm going to do what you don't want me to do. You want to see me be real? Watch me be real. Okay? It's not going to be what you guys all want, including you, Bronwyn. And I can feel the resentment from filming on the show. And I know that's what this is. I'm telling you, because I've met many men like this guy, Todd, and they have issues and they're weird. And that's why their wives, one of the reasons they were cast on the show, and the producers desperately want to capture their weird on camera so that the fans can attack it. And they kind of know it. And then they rebel in such a horrible way. And then maybe they pull it together for 5 seconds, like he did at the reunion, where he was like, I'm going to do introspection, but they don't really. And again, they're right back to the same behavior again, because this is one of the reasons Bronwyn was cast, was Todd's strange, dismissive, weird, he thinks he's better than everyone intellectually behavior. And this show was beneath him. And that is because of his background, which honestly, when I did a deep dive of him, was okay, impressive, not ridiculous. He's had some missteps in his corporate career for sure. So anyway. Oh, one thing you guys should know is that right now, Angie Katsanevas and Lisa Barlow are not friends at all. They're not talking. And also, supposedly Angie K and Bronwyn Newport are on good terms, but I have some thoughts about that I'm going to tell you a little bit later. Lisa is pissed at Angie K because she's doing a collab with a tequila company, and Angie's been pretty blatant that she thinks her tequila is better than Lisa Barlow's. So that kind of explains the dynamic of the two women at the moment. Also, Lisa Barlow's back with her son, Jack. She just threw him a big 21 birthday party with family and friends. It was like a big long table at a restaurant. And anyway, just to say it to you, I didn't see any of the housewives at this dinner. Well, it doesn't look like John and Lisa Barlow's relationship's going too well, because Lisa's such a strong character and she thinks she's so great. Her husband feels like he can't ever criticize something she does, so he might feel better about himself. He has low self-esteem, obviously. And she is frustrated with him because all the stress feels like it's on her, and she feels underappreciated for all she does for the family because she works and takes care of everything. And John just, I think, retreats even more into his corner. And I would say their relationship, if this is real, is not going too good. Maybe it's not going to continue or last overall. I don't think John would ever leave Lisa, but maybe Lisa will leave John at some point. Who knows? They're definitely cracking at the seams. To be fair, it must be hard on his ego that Lisa Barlow can't actually show her house as her real house, that she has to use someone else's exterior to pretend her house is nicer since the beginning of the show. And that must make him feel less than, that she's not, proud enough of what's real to actually show it. And I think the fans are kind of copying this with this lady quite a bit now. Recently, she ripped out in this episode I'm telling you about, like a bunch of hundreds to pay to buy Heather some gift and I guess something for herself. But it was very odd the way she did it. It was almost like a guy in a club trying to get laid, and he like specifically takes hundreds with him so girls will see it and think he's loaded and like sleep with them. It almost had the same vibe, what Lisa did, to either the fans watching the show or Heather Gay. And Epstein's on my mind, so maybe that's why I'm using that analogy. So one of the producers, like a lower producer on Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, recently was interviewed, and she made kind of a startling revelation, which I wanted to share with you, which was that when the SWAT team showed up to take Jen Shah away and they surrounded the minivan that was the production van, the producers thought that someone had called strippers to do like a stunt. But the producer who was running the show that day, who books all the Sprinter vans and also takes out all the permits so that they can film wherever they're filming, like even having the van there and the women getting on and off, they have to film it, so they have to have a permit. She was like, there's no strippers that are there. I would have to know about it, and I would have had to get a permit and all these things. So that is when the producers realized that actually Jen Shah was being arrested and that this SWAT team was real cops and they were surrounding the van for real, because the producers had no idea that that was going to happen. That scene that the women are surrounded by cops as they're trying to get Jen Shah. And so that was kind of a wild story. And the producer was panicking because she thought maybe some of the women had done something like without telling her, like get strippers and not get approval, even though that would be hard to believe. And then they realized what was really going on. But that should give more meaning to Whitney Rose's stripper scene where she fools the women that the cops are coming again for somebody, maybe Lisa Barlow, from what the women's been saying, that they were coming again for someone else. And then it turned out they were strippers. So I guess that was a way for Whitney to do a wink to the producers, if you will, and the cast. Anyway, so we move on, and Mary shows up at Angie K's house, and Angie's got like a whole presentation ready to try to win Mary over again because they got aggressive with each other a little bit at the psychic event that Whitney Rose threw the week before. So Mary didn't like the way Angie talked to her because she was venomous at Lisa, and Mary was trying to calm her down, and she kind of attacked Mary. So Mary, being Mary, basically was like, I'm not going to take that shit, right? So she sits down and she's like, you let your fury at someone else hurt our friendship in the way you spoke to me, and I'm not going to take that. You're not my sister if you talk to me like that. And that was a really good boundary line for her to set. And I appreciated her doing that on the show because it doesn't happen often. Because she's a preacher and she's used to hurting a bunch of people who follow her like Jesus. Essentially, she's very good at figuring out their weaknesses and then dominating them with them. And that's what she's done quite effectively here with Angie K. And Angie K is usually not speechless, is speechless, which shows how talented Mary is at this type of manipulation approach, leadership value, you decide. So then Mary has this scene about farting for like 20 minutes. I'm not kidding. It went on and on. But basically she said, I came over to your house. I accidentally farted. I commented on it. But then you made fun of it like 4 or 5 times basically on camera is what she meant to say. And it went from me saying it and being like a light moment to you making me feel insecure and bad about myself for it. And now it's humiliating to me on TV. And I didn't like that. And you made me feel less than. And so I'm not buying your bullshit anymore, because if you were my real friend, you wouldn't have called that out on the TV show. You would have kept it like a one-time moment and moved on, right? You wouldn't have featured it. And so, that happens. And you can tell Angie is trying to not laugh because it's so sort of such a ridiculous conversation. But whatever. The scene ends and it's kind of funny. I definitely laughed a few times because, who doesn't laugh at farts? It's programmed into us when we're in like first grade, which obviously the show is very much speaking to that intellect at the moment. Anyway, Mary's trauma comes up in the scene. We see her cry, from all of the chaos that was her family life growing up, marrying her grandpa. There's so many things that we could talk about to do with Mary's trauma, right? Like, even though I think Mary's done some really corrupt things with some of her congregation, and I'm being very kind in the way I put that, I do see that this girl from a young age was traumatized by, in a way, her church and what her grandmother and mother put her through, and then marrying her grandpa and all of this very young. And the environment she's in is very strange. And so I get it. And I do see Mary as a victim too, but often victims become also predators. So you have to be careful, right? Let me just remind you really quickly from Up and Adam's interview of Mary's mom, Rosalind, and her stepdad, Mark, what she said about Robert Jr. Let me just play this for you.
He wanted Rosie because Rosie was already, because I can tell you why, because Mary was not Bob Cosby's first choice. He wanted Rosie because Rosie was already close to Mama. She was the national choir director. We were already doing tremendous great things with the choir. We've sung, we were the choir that sang to pass the torch for the 2002 Winter Olympics. We've sang with Michael Bolton, Celine Dion, Reba McEntire, Lyle Lovett. We sang for Maya Angelou. We've sang for some of the most prominent people on this planet. Wow. With Rosie in the choir. So Rosie represented power structure for the church. So if he gets Rosie, who's going to question him or anything else? It's a power struggle. It's manipulation. It's about money and power.
Yeah.
So Mary was the young, beautiful 20-something that got caught up. She's a victim. Now she's a grown woman with a son. That's her concern now. And I don't know how she can make it any plainer. She does not want to be married to her step-grandfather. Never did want to be married to him. And all the lies that he told of Mama wanted you to marry me. That's how he convinced her. He convinced her with Mama wanted you to marry me. By the way, here's a couple $100,000. And it's your birthday. Here's a brand new BMW to go with it.
So let me ask you, when you found out that this was even a topic of conversation, when you found out that Mary was marrying, at the time, your stepfather,
right?
Yeah.
When you found out that she was going to marry him, how did you react?
April 26, 1998. It's
I left the church.
We left. Walked out.
It was a month after she died. He married my daughter. And he
came up with that, right?
He kept her in his house, in my mother's house,
away from her husband.
And she kept running away from him.
Yeah, she kept running away, and he kept going to get her and kept her away from her husband
in order to separate them to ultimately marry Mary.
And legally, that would be called alienation of affection in legal terms. So he alienated him, being a bishop, alienated her husband, her from her husband, took her to the house up here in Utah. Took her to Florida, took her to Indiana, and kept her away from her husband so he could do one thing, brainwash.
Okay.
Brainwash her.
So when you found out, you left the church.
We walked out, me and Mark, and the church followed 400 followers.
She sued Robert for transferring properties from Mama's possession and transferring into the church corporation for one reason only.
I wish I had my papers.
To control the properties and to keep them away from paying the children any inheritance.
Because technically, had they have not been put under the church, under the business, then
they would have been sold.
They would have been sold, and that money would have been divvied up between you your family,
That's
your
right.
brothers and sisters.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
But my mother gave me her church before she left, and the courts rewarded me.
So,
the church.
how is Robert still the bishop?
He's not.
Well, through his attorneys and through technicalities and
his
the
attorneys
legalities of
dropped
all
him.
kinds of... to be honest with you, some of it, of course, we don't understand. We're not lawyers.
Right.
But from what our attorneys have told us and what we've looked into is, so when they were found guilty of fraud
Sister, when you go
and
get my
conversion,
phone?
when they were found guilty of fraud and conversion, they posted a $1.2 million bond to keep them from going to court and to keep them from being arrested. The reason why they did that is because if they posted the bond, there's no damage.
You know that age-old saying, sometimes the hunted become the hunter. Let's hope that's not what happened to Mary. Then we jump to a scene with Heather and Lisa getting into it because Lisa expects that Heather's going to have her back in the scene, but she has Angie Katsanevas' back more than Lisa's. And that isn't surprising because Heather doesn't really like Lisa, never really has. And frankly, I think if I was to say it, Heather would love to see Lisa taken down, as you guys know from last season why I say that. So this is not a new feeling about Lisa Barlow. It is on the show, but this is how they felt since the very beginning of the show. So it's like actually the truth is starting to come out finally about how everybody really feels about Lisa. And you're finally seeing it 6 seasons in. And so, don't expect this to just dissipate because it's truly something everyone behind the scenes talks about. Anyway, one of the better points in the moment was that Heather Gay named her book Good Time Girl, which was a bestseller, on a fight they had in season 1, her and Lisa. And in the scene, she's kind of being like, well, that was awful and hurtful, and you've been doing it since the beginning. And Lisa made a good point, which is I gave you an iconic scene, which became a book that was a bestseller. So, you should be thanking me in a way. By the way, Heather Gay has a 3-part series coming out about all the curiosity surrounding Mormons and what happens to them in that religion where they feel taken advantage of. And again, we go back to cult predator type elements to it. So a lot of it has to do with, the tithings and all of this stuff that they make people do and how they make them feel. The premise of the show is Heather exploring the dark history of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, aka Mormons, with interviews featuring abuse survivors, ex-Mormons, and former LDS church leaders. In the show, Heather has impactful conversations about outdated and controversial practices aiming to bring awareness and enact change. And she's also going to share some of the stories in her book, Bad Mormon, which was a bestseller. And so that's what this show is going to be about. It's also going to piss off some of her friends. So then we see a scene with Brittany Bateman's daughter, Olivia, who we already know Brittany has no relationship with. She was, we find out in the show, very close to her mother up until 12 years old. And then in and around this time, it's implied that her and her mother get divorced. Maybe not right at the 12-year mark, but maybe a year before then, we'll just say. She gets a divorce from J. Michael Bateman. Now, they have another daughter together named Taylor, who's also estranged from Brittany. But what I really loved about this scene more than anything was for the first time ever, I got a hint of the year that Brittany divorced her first husband, J. Michael Bateman, who she married in 1997. And that was around 2015 to 2016 period. Now, this is really important because her daughter, thankfully, said that at 12 years old, when her mom and dad get divorced, that she does like a 360 and she stops taking care of her kids and seeing them and doing things right by them. Anyway, this was important, the 12 years old, because I knew her daughter's birth date. So I could calculate that the divorce happened sometime between 2015 and 2016, because other than that, it's been unknown. And based on her birthday and being 12 years, we could kind of figure it out. Well, it turns out she got married to John Scott Underwood in July of 2016. So it's likely that the separation from her husband, John Scott Underwood, and the divorce happened very, very quickly. And I have a feeling because she turned around and married another guy, like within 6 months, maybe a year to the divorce and separation of her first husband, that it might be that there was some infidelity here. I'm speculating. And it's possible the infidelity happened with a guy named John Scott Underwood. Again, speculation. Because John marries Brittany in July of 2016, which of course is very tight to her daughter's 12-year-old story, right? And obviously, it would make sense that Brittany would suddenly be isolated from her children for a while, and maybe they didn't know that there might have been some infidelity, in the marriage with Michael J. Bateman. Maybe they chose not to tell the kids. Maybe they knew. I don't know. We have yet to find out. But the bottom line is that it would explain why Brittany was made to be estranged from her two girls by her first husband and why he generally got custody. Now, in addition to that, Brittany, it appears, goes from her relationship with J. Michael Bateman to this guy, John Scott Underwood. And John, it turns out, is abusive. How do we know he's abusive? Because there were legal filings and the tabloids found them and they reported on this. And John Scott Underwood said that Brittany was a master manipulator and she was deviant in her own way and said awful things about her too. But based on what the daughter's saying, which is that she completely focuses on making her next husband happy and almost barely sees the other kids, it does seem to add up that she might have been in an abusive relationship as well. Because if she didn't do that and she did focus on the kids and that made him unhappy in any way, if you've been in an abusive relationship, you know the trauma that man that you're with now, that's the abuser, puts you through is devastating stuff, to the point where you start to change your behavior to do whatever he wants. So he'll stop yelling at you, punishing you, hitting you, or whatever else he's doing, ghosting you, whatever the torture is. Well, anyway, it came out back in 2023, before anyone really cared about Brittany, that she had a $2.5 million lawsuit that she was fighting out with her ex-husband, John Scott Underwood. And as part of the allegations made in this lawsuit, she clearly set out that John Scott Underwood forced her to allegedly have sex multiple times a day, controlled what she wore down to her perfume, wouldn't let her see her children when she wanted to, discouraged her seeing her kids often, is part of his control over her, controlled the way she looked in terms of, I guess, weight and everything else. And these were the allegations that she made against him. Simultaneously, he made allegations against her with his legal team, saying that she had made up a lot of lies about him and that a lot of the things that she has claimed in the past in legal motions or whatever had been dismissed. And that's what his legal team said. He was a real estate developer and kind of a gym rat from the pictures that were displayed of him. So this is what I thought you might find interesting. It says, furthermore, the business contractor forbade her from looking through his personal belongings, including his drawers, safe, truck, his phone, and computer screen. According to the filing, she had to be the first to comment on any of his social media posts and expected her to comment within the first few hours of the post being made. John allegedly kept a running list on his whiteboard of all Brittany's conduct that did not meet his approval, and he even installed cameras inside the home to obsessively watch Brittany and her children. In retaliation for Brittany's violation of John's rules, John allegedly turned off Brittany and her daughter's phones. She noted that one time her daughter had to sleep in a vehicle on a cold winter night because she was afraid he would return home. John's harassment was so frequent and pronounced that Brittany's daughter's friends stopped coming over to the house. The docs continued. John routinely yelled at Brittany, berating her for not complying with his rules. At one point, he threw away several sentimental items of Brittany as a punishment. Brittany claimed she suffered not only emotional abuse, but also financial abuse during her marriage to Underwood. She goes on that she had earned $150,000 each year for her production company prior to her marriage, but John forced her to sell the company because he wanted her to prioritize their marriage. John's paranoia, anger, insecurity, and abuse cost Brittany several million dollars in lost income, she alleged. John, at the time of the marriage, was in debt and receiving food stamps, she claimed. So she paid off his debt and established several investment and savings accounts for him. Well, he doesn't sound like that good of a real estate developer, apparently. During the divorce proceedings, John has isolated Brittany from any financial sources, even after the divorce court ordered a disbursement be made to Brittany from the business account. Well, I mean, if he was on food stamps, he must have somehow gotten money here. The docs continued. John siphoned a large amount of profit from the business for his own financial gain, depriving Brittany and other members from their share. Brittany would have received $250,000 if John had not siphoned the money. Brittany claimed that John wanted to make sure she had received nothing, although she had continued to sell real estate to earn some income. In terms of treatment, she claimed John is receiving treatment for his paranoia, explosive anger issues. Meanwhile, Brittany said she's receiving mental health counseling. Anyway, she was requesting $2.5 million. John denied abusing her. He did say that he turned off her phone because she wasn't responding to him. He claimed she took $112,000 over just a few months, so she got some money, and he called her self-absorbed, materialistic, denigrating. Neither of them have made a filing since February of 2024 on this case, so it's still pending, ongoing, whatever you want to call it. However, what isn't adding up is what is said in this conversation with the daughter, because clearly the daughter mentioned in this lawsuit would know that this man was somehow preventing Brittany from being the mom that she should have been with her daughter when she left. And that somehow does not come out in this conversation. Instead, the daughter clearly asks, why did you jump out of our lives? Why did you stop talking to us? Well, seemingly she should know why, because of this legal document that I just went over with you. So there is a bit of a disconnect in the conversation we witnessed. Now, I don't know if that's due to editing and it came out, this whole thing, and they just didn't show it, or they're planning on showing it in a different scene and that was premeditated. I don't know, but what I will tell you is that doesn't make any damn sense, because this was public and the daughter would know that this man was abusing her and not letting her see the daughter. And that's why she suddenly changed. And the fact that she doesn't even bring this up in this deep conversation we're watching on TV tells me something is off. Just saying. Logic-wise.
I know. I don't even know why that happened. I really don't. I've been in the habit of choosing men for so long because I have kids that I don't even get to see. So it's like, I'm almost
you can't put that on us.
No,
you can't talk about how sad you are because you don't have kids who don't talk to you.
I'm not. I'm trying to get to know you. Like, I'm trying.
My mom was everything that you'd want in a mom. So present in our lives. Every field trip, every dance recital, every school talent show, she was there. And she was so much fun. I was 12 when she got remarried, and it was like somebody flipped a switch in her brain to turn that person off completely. And so to go from, I love my mom, she comes with me to everything, to be begging for her attention. It was so hard because I knew that she can be a loving mother who cares about her kids. I know it's in her. But I just think that it's important that you take accountability and realize that I wanted a mom. What kid is like, I don't really want my mom to raise me. I would really love to talk to my dad about periods. God. That's ideal.
That's so sad. That's so sad, Olivia. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to make it better. That's the truth of it. I don't know how to make it better. Because I can't go back.
I know that. But I put myself in your shoes and I was like, I would never do that. So why did you?
I don't know, Liv.
I feel like it's important for you to figure out why you prioritized relationship with a man over me. So it doesn't happen again. Because that truly is my worst fear. It did kind of feel like it was me. Like I was the issue here.
I'm so sorry. Of course it's not you. Of course it wasn't you. It was me. I'm so sorry. You're my precious baby.
That you know nothing about.
That I really want to get to know again. I would love the opportunity if you'll let me.
So you see what I'm saying? What is going on here, right? Wouldn't you just say, listen, sweetheart, you know what happened was I left her dad. It wasn't great when we separated. And then I went into this relationship with this man. And since it's on the public record and I'm not afraid to talk about it on camera, I want you to know that he was abusive to me in horrific ways. And let me tell you all of them. And I wanted to keep you away from all that. And I wanted to change the way that, and he wouldn't let me see you and all this. You wouldn't pull this out in this scene to say to your daughter, knowing it's public? Come on, something's up. So then finally, some truth. Heather Gay admits what I've been telling you guys, which is that she hasn't been friends with Lisa for 4 years. And she's been trying with this very new friendship. Oh, yeah. Anyway, so we hear Heather Gay and Meredith argue the different sides. Is it Angie Katsanevas is the problem, or is it Lisa Barlow? Now, I did hear some gossip that Angie Katsanevas could have been the one dropping all of the receipts regarding Bronwyn and her felony. But since I know the account that really was doing the deep dive on this, and when I say account, the person, I know that that isn't accurate because this person has been interested in the topic, I think, on their very own. I would be shocked if this was actually a housewife on Salt Lake pretending to speak to me with the depth that this person has been speaking to me. And I do know their identities. So the reality is that if it is a housewife behind this tea being dropped, they've hired someone to be front and center on it, which I just don't think is what's happening here. So if you listen, Bronwyn makes up a whole beginning to her coming clean on camera, which is, you know, I got evicted in college when I was young, and, you know, people are talking about that, and that's true. And then she goes off onto the criminal stuff. But the thing is that nobody was gossiping about the college. They were only gossiping about the criminal stuff.
Ridiculous headlines.
Yep.
There's two separate things happening here. There are mistakes I made in college. We're talking 20 years ago. I think I had an eviction notice after I left BYU and I had to pay it later. And then they're saying that I allegedly committed crimes current day in the last year or so, identity theft, grand theft, fraud. All of those are things listed under that penal code. What actually happened was almost 10 years ago. Nothing recent. But it's been a case that was dismissed and then later sealed, and I really legally can't talk about what my involvement is in that.
So that word salad was designed to sound very eloquent, confuse you guys so you couldn't research what really went on here and move on. So I'm going to break it down for you. But first, let's listen to Todd kind of lie on camera, shockingly, and call it all bullshit.
You know, this lying bullshit online in the press affects all of us, personally and professionally.
I know this is going to cause a problem for you at work, so I'm sorry about that, because I know that's got to be a concern for you.
Of course it is.
I know that my name next to any of these words reflects poorly on you, and you need to be seen as someone who is trustworthy and beyond reproach when it comes to anything about... I know. Separate from that, I saw your text that I should think about not going on this trip.
It's unclear to me why you want to go spend time with these people. Why you want to spend time with Lisa. Why you want to fly 18 hours to be in the same room with someone that continually lies about you, lies about me, lied about Gwen. I struggle to understand why you do that. I wouldn't piss on Lisa if her brain was on fire.
Now, we all know what's going to be coming. Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Bronwyn Newport is going to arrive late to the cast trip because it's outed that her identity fraud allegations are being discussed on the show. Now, what I'm really wondering is when people are going to start talking about the fact that Bronwyn just got her citizenship test back in August of 2024. She's finally a U.S. citizen. I also was happy to hear that she paid the charity Hogle Zoo in Utah. You guys, I don't know if you know this, but the zoo named her the naming donor when she gave a pledge for money to this nonprofit. But then some sleuths noticed that the annual report didn't list her as a naming donor, which made people wonder why. And it just turns out that she didn't make the payment. So then some sleuths found out about this and started saying it online to get people's attention. And then suddenly she made the payment in February of 2025. So we also know there's the scandal with the fake necklace. Then add to that the state of California Employment Development Department sued Bronwyn Newport in 2011. She had to pay restitution for that. Not a lot, but $1,000 or something. And then there were the 5 felony counts of grand theft and the 1 felony count of identity theft, which oddly are tied to the date March 8th, 2021, which aren't the criminal stuff from her early years of 2011. Now, of course, Bronwyn can discuss her, serial criminal behavior over multiple decades, but she chooses not to because she's had them expunged. Now, she says she can't talk about them. She can talk about them legally, but it would be very damaging for Todd Bradley's career, which does require trust because he's in the financial sector with technology, and he also interacts with a lot of politicians like Trump's Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. So thus, why he probably doesn't like her shooting this show, especially with all this negative press. I think people don't realize how many instances there were of alleged dishonest acts over the years that we're looking at with Bronwyn. It almost shows like she doesn't have the best ethical barometer, I would say. It's one thing to have a mistake, for sure, a one-timer, or, maybe even 2, I'd say, okay, you know what? They've got a pattern of not understanding the consequences of what they're doing. But in her case, there's quite a few over different time periods, which tells me that she kind of has a little bit of an ethical barometer off, which might make sense. And Todd's the fixer for her, because they get together in 2014, and I think he tries to clean up her messes. I don't want to talk about this too much, though, because I've covered a whole deep dive of Bronwyn's illegitimate activities through the years, and it's much better for you to hear it with the details. So I'm going to move on now, because we have a lot to cover with Virginia Giuffre's biography, and I think it's going to be probably 2, maybe even 3 parts, because it has 37 chapters, which I'm going to give you the highlights of, because it's all very important, and you will find it interesting, I promise. Now, before we get into it, it was just announced that, Prince Andrew's having a really bad week. For the full scoop, join the Dishing Drama Dana Patreon. The link is in this audio description. It's only $6 a month, and you'll get the best information and tea about the things you care about, and even the things you don't know you care about. What are you waiting for?